project explores the experiences of people facing displacement pressures in Little Haiti, Miami, which we call gentrification, or in some cases, climate gentrification. So in Miami, we have an affordable housing shortage, along with massive investment in low-income, high-elevation communities and sea level rise, pushing people from flooding coastal areas to higher elevations, which can cause rising rental rates for households and businesses. So some people and businesses decide to move. However, people who remain in the community can also feel the effects of neighborhood change. Let me introduce Professor Mark H. Rose. He studies and teaches the social and policy bases of American life in the 20th century. He is the author of more than 40 articles in journals such as the Journal of Urban History, Technology and Culture, and many others, and multiple books.
This is a great topic and in which I've been interested for a long time, and I'm pleased for the opportunity to participate because displacement has been one of the standard features of American urban life. So as far as historians and architectural historians are able to tell, to determine, the earliest large displacement project was New York's Grand Central Station. So that's over on the sort of the lower, middle west side of Manhattan, lower income people. And one of the reasons that area was chosen was property values were inexpensive. Those people could easily be moved. And so that's where you end up with the station. There's another similarly interesting story of displacement. So in Philadelphia, what's the street called the Parkway runs from City Hall up to one of the great museums, maybe a mile and a half wide, beautiful trees, statues. But people who know about that area say that at one time it was a real working industrial district. But the people who planned the Parkway and saw through its construction, they didn't care about all of that. What they wanted was a grand concourse that would reflect their values, their outlook on the world, and help make the downtown into an ever more spectacular, wonderful place. Whenever you have these large renovation projects, it is a process historians sometimes call the creation of the second ghetto. The Pennsylvania Railroad had an extension from what was called the 30th Street Station out on the west side of downtown, and it came all the way in right up to City Hall, and it was about 2 stories tall and maybe half a block wide, and it had the nickname of the Chinese Wall. It was, and the trains were smoky and it was noisy, and by the 1940s, it had become a lower rent area. Homeless people resided there. So the big effort was to get rid of that thing, open it up, level it, bring in high-rise towers, people who would, hotels, office towers, people who would make it into a prosperous area. And in that sense, it worked, but nobody paid any attention to all of the people who were displaced along the way. It's not as if clearing out the Chinese Wall meant that those people would be moving to some kind of a standard place to live. They'd have meals. They're simply pushed away.
Climate gentrification is basically when you have a place within a city, like Little Haiti, for example, and it is on a prime land that is now more beneficial or more resilient to the risk of climate change. So there's going to be climate changes that are going to happen in the next couple of years. And so now this becomes prime real estate, prime area for where now developers can move and begin to, you know, displace the residents that are currently here. So it's going to bring in more development, more revitalization into the community, which will then come at a cost to the current housing market, to the current prices that are here, and that then will push out the residents for a more luxury eco district kind of market, I would say.
Hello. Yeah, I run a workshop called Write to Heal. At its core, it's an expressive writing workshop to help people process stress and trauma. But it's a workshop that I can take into any environment and circumstance. So I was actually able to model it for today. So a little bit of what we did is we did some belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing to just kind of calm us and get us in a state of relaxation. Then we did some free writing, and then we did something that's called an ujjayi breath. Victorious or ocean breath as we listened to the sounds of the roosters and smelled the cooking that was starting to happen and the beans and the rice, and we really just kind of became part of the nature that is in this present moment here. And then we did a prompt for about 20 minutes where we reflected on being planted here and rooted here, and also the movement that's occurring, the shift that's occurring, whether that movement is happening because of climate change, but we also reflected on what's happening as people come into the space and build luxury condos and what that movement looks like because of the need for profit and more profit. And then we shared those pieces of writing with each other, and we gave each other feedback, and then ultimately have something that a few people are going to share that they feel excited and confident about. And that's the role that I played today.
Yeah, so this is my piece. Ah, my shortcut is ruined. Loud guttural screams in my car. I'm already late. The usual whip around the circle that I dance around near Fred Astaire studio, gone. Ugh! Cranes, new construction, where green space used to be. Green space, disappearing. So stressful. I want to seek solace in the sea. Cars, pickups. Ever since 45, monster trucks, extreme cop lights on civilians. Can't breathe. Flow is blocked. Trauma triggers. No parking at the seashore. No space to just feel into this natural habitat that's held and cradled me through life. In this lifetime, Miami is home. So you know what, Mayor Francis? How can I help, you dare ask? Well, don't even get me started. I'm unable to afford a decent place to rent. How about you help me? Can you help me? City of Miami mayor, rolling out the red carpet, red Tetris cars with California plates, cutting me off, don't even look at me in the eye. Go right ahead, sir. Your car is not an automatic ticket. Greedy motherfuckers. Please, God, protect the Everglades. Protect the parks. More parks. Less parking garages. More originality. More community. Please, God, Miami's soul is crying and we are not for sale. You motherfucking imperialists, get your hands off our banyan trees. They're ours. They're mine. Thank you.
It's C, Nikisha, because my last name is Charles, and I put the C in front. And it's a play on words. I want you to see me, but I also tell myself to see the world. I was here for the workshop, and these are the products of that workshop. So the first piece is more questions than answers. What is shelter? Should it be permanent or simply temporary? How does an area go from desirable to undesirable to desirable again? Why is yesterday's garbage today's treasure? Who gets to be the measure? What makes the property value? Who controls the appreciation? What role do you take? Does it make the world great? Thank you. And then this one is not titled. When you're a rolling stone, you never know where to call home. Searching for a place to plant your seed, instead sprouting where the wind blows like a weed. This is all we've known, so we roam. Growing everywhere, even where there's no fertile soil. Somehow, we find the space to prevent the root rot. Still, we all want a spot on this earth that's not ours to own.
All right, what's good, everyone? So, Sahal the Doctor, as I was saying, I'm a rapper by day and night and professor by day and night. So, I was at the workshop earlier today, and this is a piece that I... Gentrification is a neo-colonial project. Developers in the neighborhood scoping out the prospects. What can make the biggest money? Never people over profit. When the community finally catches wind, it's often too late to stop it. A conversation's good, but can we walk it like we talk it? Lived experience for us, but for them, another discussion topic. While my Migos getting displaced, another dollar in their pocket, disproportionately displacing those who the skin color of chocolate. Now they colonizing space, ain't that why they building rockets? When you disposable, you have no rights, so you never on the docket. While the climate steady changing and the city keep rearranging, luxury high rises they continue to be making, indigenous land they will continue to be taking, treaty with Mother Earth they will continue to be breaking. Take, until there's no more left to give. Got our people wondering, where can I live? Thank you.
I noticed that we are in the site of where most of the climate gentrification is going to take place, and so it's a very like embodied experience here, like just being here in the community with voices from within the community, hearing from them was a very embodied experience.
Kind of listening to what folks had to share today with their writing, a few sort of themes or keywords sort of stuck out to me, and they're sort of terms that are, I feel like they're heavy and they're weighted, but I noticed like colonization and imperialism, and you know, I've been hearing that more recently, but for me it makes me think of some history class in middle school, and it's like, oh, that's from hundreds of years ago. It's some term that refers to something rooted deep in history. Whether it was good or bad, maybe we didn't even get that context at that age, but now we're seeing a new form of it being operated and propelled in a different context, but having the same harm, you know, to the people that it's inflicted upon. And it's just kind of like makes, I don't know, for me it like blows up the picture of like, as humans, this has been going on for a really, really, really long time, and it makes you question like, why is the colonizer colonizing? What is the human nature behind that, and how do we change that and rethink that?
So if you're gonna have funding coming from all over and prices rising, which is what creates gentrification basically, how do you strengthen those communities inside a different area or region? So Dade County housed the Miami coin now. So how to create centers of entrepreneurship to start using the Miami coin so Miami helps out as a city. And inside each community you start to create platforms of entrepreneurship so that you have different companies with their specialization, focusing on that product or service to export to the rest of the community, let's say city of Miami first.
I think it's totally natural for people to move. It's totally natural for people to want better for themselves. It's natural for us to integrate in the same way we've done here with the roosters and the sound of motorcycles and nature and technology out in nature. Like, I think that stuff is natural to us as we are. But these roosters have a choice. They can live here or they can exist elsewhere. And I think for me, the anger that I've noticed in y'all's pieces and the anger that I feel is that our options have dwindled. Because as luxury condos are coming up, as access is being had, it's become increasingly unaffordable. Serena's desire to want to create, I think, cities and communities where change can happen, that positive change can happen, but folks are included in it and they're not pushed out. Because I think that anger you're feeling, I'm like, hell yeah, because you have You have a mayor who's saying we're open. Come here and live with us. And if you think about it, these techie folks are also escaping a community they can't afford to come somewhere that's more affordable. And as a result, they're pushing the folks who are here out. But these folks have no options. And then as the climate comes in and says, all of you, then it's even more inaccessible. And it's like, well, what do people do now? And then I think about Simon's piece about now we're thinking let's colonize space rather than us creating more sustainable shelter.
Gentrification is just a symptom of a greater problem, which is the affordable housing crisis. And the people who feel the effects of the affordable housing crisis more than anybody else are black and brown women, specifically single mothers. Because they are heads of household, they have to raise an entire family, and they have to be the economic column of support for not just their family, but an entire community in many of these situations. That's not to say that men don't feel it. Absolutely, men do. But when a single family, a single mother who is raising a family feels it, it affects more than just the mother. And consequently, when the single mother who's raising a family then is developed and given the resources to be able to circumvent the effects of gentrification, that helps not just the single mother, it helps everybody else as well. And so I feel it's important for somebody who looks like me and who has my gender to really make sure to highlight and say those types of things, because sometimes we can get tricked into believing that this problem affects everybody the exact same way, and so there's going to be one solution that is going to help everybody in the exact same way, and unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that this is a very multifaceted, dynamic, and complex issue. There are many different solutions that unfortunately we have to all get together and adopt. And there are some solutions that work for some people and some that will not work for some other people, right? And I think that as long as we maintain an open-mindedness about what those can be and we work together and truly as a community, where the people who are most affected lead this process at all times, then I think we have the potential to come up with some really cool ideas.
We're here because we already have it on our radar. You know, we already understand that this is happening, it's affecting the people around us, and we want to talk about it. So what I notice is that there's people from all walks of life, men, women, black, white, Spanish-speaking, English-speaking, different areas of, you know, who knows what you make, what you don't make, whatever, that care about this issue, right? That we're all here together, we're having this conversation, and we have a shared interest in this particular topic.
And I just learned specifically about how this affects single mothers and black and brown mothers. And it's interesting to think about that in the context of gentrification happening like here right in our communities, and how creating resources for women and single women and how that could potentially impact our communities on a greater scale. And like, that's not something I've thought about within the concept of gentrification as a solution. Even I always go to policy, and I always go to zoning, and I always go to how can we help small business owners who've been in an area for 20-30 years remain in that area. How can we make sure their rents are locked in? That's usually the solutions I go to, but it's completely been invisible to me how single mothers are affected and how they're the heads of their household and how their children are affected.
And I'm Destiny Smith, Leadership Program Coordinator for Catalyst Miami. And I think one thing I want us to know about our community is that we're gold, right? Like the communities that are here within Miami, the authentic, you know, just vibrancy of all the eclectic people that live here, right? That are born and raised in Miami or from totally different parts of the country that come here that are now planted here, whether it's from Haiti, Cuba, wherever, right? Like we come together and we are golden. And so especially talking about like low wealth communities of color, like that is my heart, that's Catalyst Miami's heart, and I just want the community to know, people to know that those communities, black and brown communities, and just places just like Little Haiti are gold, right? And so they matter, and they're precious, they have value. So part of what Catalyst Miami does is to advance racial and economic justice, and we do that for low wealth communities of color in particular. And so we do that in a couple of different ways. But primarily what my role is through the policy and advocacy department. And so what I do is run leadership programs. And so part of one of the leadership programs is CLEAR, and that's our climate justice program. And so I want people to know about that. It is basically where we can come together, learn about the climate science. We're learning about the climate threats that are happening right here in Miami-Dade County, also in communities just like Little Haiti. And we're learning about those solutions, right? So what does it look like for us to come together, advocate on behalf of communities just like this that are experiencing climate gentrification. What does it look like for us to, to advocate for housing, affordable housing here in this city, considering the climate threats that are going on, and all of those things. So that's pretty much what the CLEAR program is. And so the CLEAR program is a 10-week program, and we're doing one right now this summer. So the next cohort is coming up this summer. It's a free program. We can learn about climate science. You can learn all about the threats and everything. And that's going to be happening in South Dade. So I have a QR code if anyone is interested in signing up for that. But in general, like, that's pretty much what Catalyst Miami is doing. On my side of the spectrum, we do tons of other things in the community as well.
All of those solutions are doomed to fail. Why? Because the majority of the people in our city and in our county do not share our values. And what is our principal value? Our principal value is that housing is a human right, that everybody does deserve a home, that people deserve to stay in this neighborhood because they're from here. It is true. But the thing is, most people do not recognize socioeconomic rights. They do not. They do not recognize those rights, okay? And more importantly than that, they put property rights before human rights every single time. Every single time, especially in Miami. So, in order for us to really get that housing policy, I mean, imagine everybody having a home. Imagine housing production on the level we're talking about. Imagine spending $50 billion on housing in the next 10 years, which is what we need. Everybody has to be on board with this idea, this radical idea that everybody deserves a home. And now, the question becomes, how do you get everybody to adopt this idea?